Vladimir reroll and it works, then you're a beast.
$20 PayPal.
Oh, $20. Okay.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't take me serious.
But yeah, he went from probably I think the worst unit in the game to like okay.
Really?
Yeah, same with Lilia. Lilia went from like the absolute worst unit in the game to actually being like okay now.
Well, I heard if you get lucky with Dragonmancer and get 9 Dragonmancer with Lilia, she's kind of disgusting.
That sounds that sounds pretty cool. I've not seen that before,
I've
but
seen it a few times and it's kind of gross. I have never seen a Lily do that much damage. It's kind of like the Karma reroll. If you get blue battery and blue buff, it just gets worse and worse as it progresses.
yeah, that'd be pretty nice. Unfortunately, now with this patch, they just removed that interaction, so you can't do blue battery and blue buff anymore stacking.
Rest in
Yeah,
peace.
it was
Why'd they do that?
because I think people were just playing Karma reroll or Ezra reroll too much, and being able to cast every auto was a little bit too OP in their mind.
That's the only way to counter Siphon, though.
Yeah, well now even the Siphon, his bite wasn't touched, but his charge damage was nerfed.
Oh, so his bite still basically one shots, is what you're telling me?
Yeah, basically. But now it just is
Oh,
because before it was like okay, his charge shouldn't be one shotting.
yeah,
So now they fixed it up for sure.
that's good. I liked running Assassin Siphon. It was so funny.
Yeah, Assassin Siphon's pretty crazy.
Sounds like it looks like it's just going to be a one-on-one class. I appreciate it.
Well, we have a little bit more time. I didn't want to ping everyone again within like 2 hours, but
Yeah.
I think I might actually just do that at least. I will.
Just say, hey, Masterclass starting now. Come join.
Yep, that's the plan. All right, we did it. All right. Yeah, I know we've been trying to stay away from like over pinging, so at least now the Valorant or other people will not be over pinged.
Oh, did you just do, at TFT at League? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, nice.
Okay, well I'll tell you what. Since I just sent that out, we'll wait a couple more minutes and then we'll get started.
No worries.
Will you be joining today for the in-houses?
That's at, what, 7?
It'll be at 6 p.m. PST.
So 9?
Yeah, 9 EST.
Okay. I'd probably be able to join it. Because
Okay.
I'm doing that observing class at 8 because with Kale because I really want to get more observing stuff going. I really enjoyed doing it for the Valorant tournament we had not too long ago with K-Man, and it was really fun. So I think we'll do more of that for sure.
All right, sounds good.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to get as much information as I can with it.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right. Well, yeah, I know Kale's doing a special class today. I wish I could attend that too, but some overlapping things.
Okay, I'll record it for you.
Thanks. Okay, let's get started. Anybody else who
Mhm.
wants to join can join halfway.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. I'm gonna go kind of slow today, just because my voice, but we'll still work with what we can. So, hello everyone, welcome to the first TFT Masterclass of July, and today we're going to talk about mid to late game transition. And this is an extremely important topic because in this set it is very different. This is due to the augment timing changes. This is even due to Treasure Dragon no longer giving you economy after that round. This was changed about I think 1 or 2 patches ago. So then a free round of getting econ after choosing your items on Treasure Dragon, that's removed. So a couple of these factors tied in together really makes the mid to late game transition super important. And let's talk about what to do and what not to do. So a little table of contents for today. We're going to be talking about introduction to transitioning. We're going to talk about the different factors that will influence transitioning. We're going to talk about how to create a game plan. And then lastly, we're going to talk about when should you transition. And the last point, super important, when is super important. Okay, let's get straight into it. So, introduction to transitioning. So, what is transitioning? Transitioning is when you pivot or change from one board to another. And in pivoting, it's the same definition as transitioning, or changing is basically just changing your board. And why is knowing how to transition important? Well, knowing how to transition gives you plenty of opportunity and benefits. Number one, it allows you to optimize your chances and mitigate bad luck. TFT is a game that has a large chance factor to it, and being able to take advantage of the little bits of luck that you receive is super important, and being able to mitigate as much bad luck as you can in your games is super important. So being able to transition and be flexible certainly helps with that. Number two, knowing how to transition can allow you to play the strongest board. This can be due to many factors, whether it's other players who are trying to contest your comp and stealing your units so you can't actually hit your 2-stars. Being able to transition, play flexibly can help you play your strongest board. And last part, like I was saying, playing flexible and avoid contesting comps with other players. If you only know how to play one composition and let's say 2 other enemies are playing the same thing, then you guys are all going to be fighting for the same units, and then everyone is just going to go 6, 7, 8. So that's why transitioning is important. As you see on the right here is the image. There's plenty of compositions out there, and being able to flex and transition between a couple of few, depending on your items or augments or units that you hit, is super important. So this is a brief intro to what transitioning is. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit of classification here. As you heard earlier, today is a mid to late game transition class. So in my opinion, generally, what classifies as mid game is all of stage 3 and up to stage 4-3. So as you see here on the right, the top image that includes everything of stage 3, even wolves, and then it will be the first couple stages of, or the first couple rounds of stage 4. And then anything from stage 4, 5 onward is considered late game. And this is due to 2 things. Well, number one, stage 1 and 2 is early game. This is just because no one has really ramped up their board yet, just because of the stage of the game. There's not much damage taken from fights, so that's early game. And then mid game, stage 3. And then, so stage 4 is where it gets tricky, right? Stage 4-2 is where the first augment, or the last augment comes. So when the last augment is presented. And yes, you could level to 8 on stage 4-2, get that augment and try to spike your board. But with this set, there are dragons, and dragons are extremely expensive. It's going to be 24 gold to 2-star your 8 cost, and even 30 gold to 2-star your 5 cost dragon. So this means you're going to need a little bit more gold, and all-inning on stage 4-2 is not the move this set. So that's why on stage 4-5, that's a better timing to level to 8 and transition, unless you're extremely rich, which we'll go into later. That is why it's considered late game. The actual damage of the stage does not change between these 2 parts of like before carousel stage 4 and after carousel on stage 4. However, if you are going level 8, that means you're adding in an extra unit, and then enemies or yourself will start taking more damage. So stage 3, 4-1, 4-2, 4-3, in my opinion, is considered mid game. And then after carousel, that's what is going to be considered late game. And anything past stage 5, if you lose really hard in a round, you're taking anything up to 20 damage. So this is the mid to late game classification generally, and this will help us later into the lesson. Okay, so that was a quick little brief introduction on what transitioning is. Now let's talk about what influences transitioning and what factors will affect this. Okay, what influences transitioning? So there's plenty of circumstances in this game that can influence the transitioning of a board. A couple of these examples are item drops, your amount of gold and HP, enemy boards, whether they're trying to go the same composition as you. So this ties into units, whether you're being dropped specific units, you're not getting specific units, or enemy boards are taking those units. Your augments also influence your board. And then the last one, it's not essentially a factor, but what influences transitioning the most, at least in every game, is when you play a temporary board and then you change to a strong board. So that's still considered a transition, and that normally happens almost every game unless you get a very clear, distinct start and you're given all the units that you need right away, which is very rare. You're most likely going to be playing a temporary strong board and then changing to your strongest board, either on stage 4-1 or later in stage 4. So these are a couple factors that will influence your transitioning. And let's look at an example. So let's say you're playing a game of TFT. You're looking to transition on level 8 on either stage 4-2 or 4-5. So 4-2 is considered a fast level 8 just because, well, it's faster and it's earlier than the regular level 8. That's when you'll level to 8 and roll down and try to make your board. And 4-5 is a regular transition on level 8 where you'll have a little bit more gold, but it's later in the game. So you're trying to transition on level 8 at this point, and let's say you low roll your early game. So you get super unlucky early and you're losing a lot of HP. So you can no longer still continue with your original plan of leveling 8 on 4-2 or 4-5. You'll need to level to 7 on 3-5 and stabilize, and then you can roll again or level on stage 4. So let's take a look at what influenced that. All right, so we're playing the game, and although we have a plan, TFT does not always go according to that plan. And in this case, not only did we low roll our units, so we didn't hit any 2 stars or even just natural any good units, perhaps our items drops were bad, maybe our gold was average and our HP was low. So all these put together means that we need to transition early, so level to 7 on stage 3 round 5. Right after that carousel, stabilize, then you can roll again or level on stage 4. So that's just a quick example of identifying a couple factors in our games that will lead us to transitioning, and then actually transitioning sometimes a little bit earlier than needed, but it's better to stabilize early and try to squeeze out maybe a 5th or a 6th than going for the 1st or 8th, not hitting on level 8, and then it's an 8th. Okay, let's look at another example here. So now let's focus more on the units. So let's say you're looking to play Siphon on stage 4, okay? So this is either a stage 4-2 level to 8 roll down or a stage 4-5 level 8 in roll down. But you take a look on stage 3 and other players have already got the Siphon unit on stage 3. Some people high roll on level 7, you have a 15% chance, level 6 you have a 5% chance to see one of these dragons, and then some of these are taken out of the pool. So now you might consider pivoting to Guild Zaya or even Shioyu as an alternative. So this will be applying to the units and just looking at how that influences your transitioning. You see like, okay, a lot of these Siphon units, they're out of the pool, which means it'll be a lot harder for me to get it and I don't want to contest other players. Consider transitioning to a different composition to avoid contesting units. Okay, are there any questions so far on just the introduction to transitioning and how these factors can influence when to transition and how?
No, sir.
All right, great. Then let's continue. Okay, so let's take a look on how to create a game plan. There's going to be a couple brief steps, and if you apply these steps to every scenario in the game, then you'll be able to make the correct decision, or at least a more correct decision, and have a more smooth and really optimize your chances within the game. Okay, so here is our intro to transitioning, or at least a couple of our steps of it. So number 1, you want to analyze your current state. Number 2, you're going to create a plan, and then number 3, you're going to execute your plan. Okay, so quick 3 steps, 1, 2, 3. So first steps. Analyze your current board state, okay? So you want to take a look at your items, take a look at your augments, unit, gold, enemy boards. If you notice here, these are the same factors that we looked at in a couple slides previous that influence the transitioning. So all this ties in together. So step 1, take a look at your current board state. I know you only have like 30 seconds or like, I think it's now 40 seconds for when you're choosing an augment. Not a lot of time, but take a quick analysis, see what you have, and ask yourself some of the following questions. Do you have suitable items for your composition? The augments that you currently have, do they complement your board, or will they complement a different type of board? Do you have enough gold to transition to another comp, or are you stuck just rolling at your current level to try to stabilize? And then last but not least, check if any enemies are contesting you for the same units. So first step will always be to really analyze and take a look first before even creating any plans. And then after looking at all these factors, you can start creating a plan based off what you've seen. Okay, so step 2 is when we actually create the plan. So step 1, you want to take a look and analyze everything. And then after you analyzed everything, you could start formulating a plan. So after analyzing your current state, plan your next steps. Think about what is your end game board. Okay, so this can be on either level 8, on level 9. Take a look at, okay, what units will I have? When should I level? What items do I want on Treasure Dragon? And then should I roll now or should I wait? So this is when you're going to be creating your plan. You'll have all the information you need, or at least a okay amount of information you need, or that you have, and then you can put together a plan from there. Are there any questions here? Hero Sax, do you
Nope.
have anything?
Oh no, my bad.
Okay, no
I don't know why I'm muted.
No problem. I thought you had a question. Okay, I'll also check the chat to see if there's anything. Looks like we're good for now. Okay, so this is essentially the most important part. So now I'm just gonna reiterate. So step 1, we've taken a look at our items, augments, units, gold, enemy boards, etc. And then we made a quick little mental note of what's good, what's bad, what needs to be changed. Number 2, we're gonna create that plan. All right. So then after taking a look at everything, we're going to create a little plan in our head of and really visualize what our next steps are going to be. Then number 3 is you execute your plan. So after creating your plan, follow through with it unless circumstances change. And circumstances, they change all the time. Things in TFT, they come up all the time. Either you high roll or you low roll, and there are plenty of these opportunities that happen. So for example, if you high roll specific units, right, you could change your game plan. If you're on level 7 and you get that 1% legendary units, then you're like, okay, well, I no longer need to play as, I guess, I could play a little bit more greedy now. Just because I high rolled, I have an extra opportunity compared to everyone else. Or if you low rolled, let's say you really roll like 30 gold, even looking for 1 unit, and you can't even find it. Well, then it's like, okay, well, we want to salvage our situation, and we can no longer play for maybe top 4. We're just looking for a 5th or a 6th. So TFT is really that type of game where, okay, you're going into this head on. You create your plan, all right? You try to follow this plan that you've created after thinking, analysis, and all that as best as you can. But sometimes it doesn't work out no matter how hard you try, or maybe it does work out really easily and you barely have to try. But as long as you have this this general plan that you're coasting through, and you're able to adapt and change it depending on what happens in your game, then averagely, or like throughout your game on an average, you'll be able to perform well and really get that system of this 3-step plan going of number 1, analyze, number 2, create your plan, and then number 3, execute your plan. Okay, so now we talked about 1, 2, 3, what to do, and let's put it into an actual example here. So this is an example. It's already laid out for you, so let's just review it. So number 1, it's always analyze, right? So let's look let's look at our current state. Okay, remember, it's what? Units, items, augments, HP, gold, all that. So number 1, low HP. We're at 39 here, and we're approaching stage 4. So this is actually pretty low, which means that we lost streak for most of the game. Okay, we're average amount of gold because we're level 6 and we have 50 gold, so that's not incredibly poor, but it's not like a fast 4-2 is coming, or even a 4-5 is very applicable here. Then we look at units. Okay, so this is 6 Dragonmancer Nunu carry. Okay, so that is our main carry, and then the last point I already said we're approaching stage 4. So you analyze, take a look at everything, make that mental note, and that will help you create your plan. So now that we've taken a look at everything, we create the plan. So we're like, okay, Nunu is our main carry. We're going to want to level to 7. We're going to want to reroll for Nunu 3, and that's our win condition. So being able to identify your win condition is super important. And that normally is the end point of your plan that you created. Okay. Yeah, sorry. I'm a little bit sick, so I'm coughing a bit. But being able to identify your win condition is really the main point of creating your plan, because that's what you're aiming to go towards. And the last part, number 3, is you execute your plan. So you really just follow through with step 2 of what you already laid out, follow through with it, and then be able to be flexible based off of certain circumstances that happen. So for example, let's say that you high roll Nunu 3 really quickly. You go to level 7, just like your plan was, you start re-rolling and boom, you hit, let's say, 2 Nunus in a shot. You roll again, here's another Nunu. And then all of a sudden you only need like 2 more. All right, so let's say you actually hit your Nunu 3 pretty quickly. Now you can immediately start looking like, okay, now I want to go level 8 because I got really lucky. I hit everything and then I'm able to I can play differently now because you got lucky, you high rolled, and then you can adapt based off your circumstance. And same with the opposite way. Let's say you're level 7, you roll down a little bit and you hit 0 Nunus. Well, now maybe you're just playing for a 5th or a 6th, you're just donkey rolling for Nunu 3, and then if you miraculously hit, then maybe you can start looking for level 8s. But executing your plan while being flexible is essentially what step 3 is. Are there any questions for this example here?
I have a question actually.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I'm actually really new with TFT, and I was just kind of curious. What exactly is considered to be like a high coin roll or whatever it is that you were calling? Like for example, in this situation, you called it the like Nunu, right? Like that's actually one of the ones that you would be rolling for.
Yeah.
So what exactly makes Nunu like a good character to roll? Is it because of they're like high coin, or what is it exactly about it?
Okay, well, no problem. So number one, well, welcome to the TFT community. Hopefully you're having a good time here. And to actually answer your question, so looks like you had 2 questions here. Number one is what is considered like a high roll, or like what is considered like actually getting like lucky in this game? And number 2, why is Nunu a good carry? So let's answer your first question of what is considered high roll. So high rolling, like you already guessed, it just means getting lucky, right? Or like just beating the odds. And an example of high rolling, if you see, I think hopefully all of you can see my little cursor here. On the this little bar, it shows the percentages of, or I guess like the likelihood of seeing that unit cost in your shop. So it goes from 1 to 5, with gray being 1 and gold being 5. And the more you level up, the easier it is to find higher cost champions. So let's say once you hit to level 7, then you have a 1% chance of seeing a 5 cost unit in your shop. So let's say like a high roll is like, okay, our plan was here to level to 7 and reroll for Nunu 3. I'm not sure how much you played of TFT or how much like but there are traits in this game that all the units like apply to. So like Nunu here is this little big yeti. He's a big yeti with a little guy on his back. He's considered something called Mirage, which has like a specific trait. So let's say we got a 5 cost Mirage, which is called Yasuo, and that's from a 1% chance of even seeing a legendary in our shop on level 7. So then it's like, okay, well, we got lucky. We got a 1% chance of seeing something that we actually need to implement. Then that would be like a change in circumstance, and you're able to play a little bit more greedy now that we hit that. So that's what it means to high roll, you even get lucky. And the second part of this, your question is like, what makes Nunu a good carry? Well, in this case, we have stacked all of our items on him. So if you see here, he has 3 full items on him. And number 2, there's a specific trait in TFT called Dragonmancer. So it basically means that you make one person the hero, and then he becomes your main carry, because they get extra health and they get extra ability power, which is essentially damage. So we're in this comp, it's kind of just putting all your eggs in one basket and then hoping that one egg doesn't break. And that's what this comp is. So by putting everything on Nunu, he's becoming our one main carry, and then everybody else is just kind of supporting him. So that's why we want to really keep re-rolling for him and 3-star him.
Oh, I see. So let's say, for example, you actually hit that Yasuo, like you said. Or I'm pretty sure, like, actually, let's give one example from a game I played. Let's say I hit Talon.
Yeah.
Is that like a good one, for example? Because I high rolled, for example. I think he's 4 coins or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's
so
quite rare or epic or something like that.
yeah. So like he'll be considered.
Play.
Okay, yeah. So he'd be considered like a purple unit. So like a 4 cost, or as you say, like 4 coin, tier 4. They're all like the same thing. So he's like a 4 coin or 4 cost. Let's say you're level 5 and you find him and you actually need him. Well, right now in the meta, Talon you can like fit into essentially any attack damage composition, so he's really good. And let's say you're level 5 and you have a 2, so that means you have a 2% chance of seeing a 4 cost unit, and you hit the Talon like you said. Well, then it's like, okay, well now I high rolled, I got super lucky, able to implement this unit that I hit into my composition early ahead of everyone else, then you can play a little bit more greedy. And what this means is like you're going to be now winning rounds that maybe you shouldn't have, just because you got lucky and you found a unit that you can use ahead of everybody else. Because normally we'd find like 4 coins or like 4 cost units on level 7 where the chance is 15% instead of 2%. So in this game that you're describing, perhaps you had a general plan that you're going through, but because you hit this unit early ahead of everybody else and it's something that you actually need, then you can essentially just win most of your rounds off of this this high roll or like lucky roll that you got, and then you can really like optimize your chances from there.
I see. And if it, even if it doesn't matter, right? Like if they're not part of the plan, like you mentioned, they're still a good roll to have, right? Like you shouldn't just skip them, or should you just skip them only if it matters, like with traits, or if they manage to, like you said, Talon is a good damage composition guy, so he would fit in regardless. So that would be a good idea.
So Talon,
case by case.
Okay, it's definitely case by case. Talon is a case where his 2 traits is Guild and Assassin. So let's say you're playing like a full AP composition, so ability power composition, you're playing mages who don't do any attack damage. Then in that case, I would still splash Talon in because number 1, he does a lot of damage even for not having any items. And number 2, Guild, his trait applies to the entire team. Even though it's giving, so like the trait Guild for Talon specifically, it gives 10 attack damage to everyone on your team. And although like let's say like mages don't use it, it still helps because it's still damage, especially at an early stage of the game. So yeah, you could definitely splash him in, but it's that specific case because of his Guild trait. But let's say you got like a Zaya, which is another 4 coin or 4 cost carry. They would not like be able to fit into a mage's comp. So then it'd be like, oh nice, we high rolled and got a 4 cost unit on stage on level 5, so 2% chance. But unfortunately we can't splash it or use it in our comp just because it doesn't benefit us, and then we would skip it. So definitely case by case. Some things you could splash in, some things you can't, and it's really about knowing what each unit does and thinking about, will it benefit my board? Yes, great, let's put it in. We got lucky, we're gonna start winning some rounds that maybe we shouldn't have, or no, it doesn't help our board, unlucky, we move on.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
that really helps. Yeah.
Okay, great. No worries. And always, anybody else, just feel free to ask questions. Today is a little bit of a shorter lesson, and although I am taking my time just because my voice, we're always open for discussion and able to answer any questions. We'll also have a big Q&A at the end where anybody can just ask anything generally. Okay, so that is our example of our 3-step process. Now let's go through a actual practice example. So remember, follow the 3 steps. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to look at this board, so take things to take into consideration. Number 1, items, units, HP, gold, stage. I know we can't look at enemy boards here just because it's a this picture, but look at our current state. Think about what the end game might be. Think about like what we have currently, and in a couple minutes, let's have a quick discussion about filling in steps number 1, step number 2, and then we can't really fill in step number 3 because that's just executing, but definitely step number 1 and 2 we could think about. So take a look at this picture. If you have any questions, feel free to ask now. Jot down maybe something on a notepad, or even like just like have it in your head. And in a couple minutes, we'll talk about what we think would go under current state and what we think would go under our plan. Okay, let's give another 1 minute, and then we'll have a quick discussion on what we think.
I think I have a pretty good plan.
Okay.
You do? I feel absolutely lost. I mean, I feel like I have an idea of where we could go from here, but like, I still. It's just. It's one of those like you can go anywhere. I feel like I don't know.
Yeah, there are plenty of opportunity here. So let's break it down, right? Always 3-step process. 1, 2, 3. So number 1, we've analyzed our current state. So if Lights, you said you had a good plan, let's call on to maybe some other members of our VC and talk about the current state. So does anyone have an idea of what we think about the units, items, HP, gold, stage? Just at least right now we're just like stating facts. So like, oh, HP high, HP low, approaching stage, something something. So just jot out some ideas or just open discussion.
I love the numbers. Go first. Yeah, go first.
So what I would say, I would be very hesitant to do anything at this moment in time. I'd wait till 4-2 hits to see what augment I get, because we have 6 seconds until we go into 4-2, which obviously we get a chance at an augment of some sort. So that could drastically change our plan. But there's two ways I could approach it. Let's say we get lucky and we get a soul. So let's say we get a guild soul. From there, I'd probably roll down to maybe 40 gold, either trying to hit Sejuani 2. And if I hit a Sejuani 2, I'd replace the Yone and the Nunu eventually and try to pivot into a Guild Zaya comp, depending on how it works. But let's say we don't hit the Sejuani 2 and we get a different soul. We have Lee Sin 1, Nunu 1, and Yone 1, but we have one of each on the bench too. So we could technically 2-star all 3 of those units, depending on how lucky we get with a roll down. And the items on Ezreal we can take off, minus the IE, and place on Yone and just with a Bloodthirster to make Yone our carry for a little bit to stabilize.
That's interesting. Wow, I didn't even think of something like that.
Yeah.
You know, my plan was just based on the analysis that you have like every single trait sort of like started, right? You have 2-2-stars, so you can kind of like take the either astral or like sort of like swift shot just to not waste the 2 stars in the gold you've made. So the first plan would be like maybe by level 8 by 5-1. Sorry, you get level 8 by 5-1, and then afterwards you start greeding to try to get like a Sejuani level 2, or get one of the Skarn or whatchamacallem, Ezreal level 3 maybe potentially, because he already has a lot of good items. Not to mention that he's got, I think, I wouldn't say that like that's like meta items, but I'm not entirely sure, but they look pretty good.
Okay, I'll just
we have
comment
also-
a little bit then.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so really good point so far, but I will touch upon Nano's point. So at this stage of the game, stage 4, we've actually now entered the very end of the mid game and the very beginning of, or soon to be the beginning of the late game. So currently this board is just playing our strongest temporary board, but we are going to transition. A good way to think about the game is, depending on your stage, subtract by 1, and that should be the cost of your main carry. So let's say stage 4, right? We want to try to have a 2-star 3-cost unit at least as our carry. If this was stage 1, or sorry, stage 2, then having a 2-star Ezreal is great because it's a 2-star 1 cost. And then in stage 3, we would try to have a 2-star 2 cost. And then, as just said, like stage 4, try to have a 2-star 3 cost. So that is a good rule to think about to not get outscaled in the game. This is just based off of like numbers and the stats of a unit. So actually this board on stage 4 is pretty weak. So we're actually, although we do have the 2 stars of like Skarner and Ezreal, they're going to be outscaled by like 3 costs, 4 costs, even 5 cost units. So we are definitely going to be looking to change some things. Okay.
So you don't want to keep them, and you actually want to invest in the new ones as they come in. Okay, that's interesting.
Yep, exactly. And Lights, you had a really good, I guess, analysis of what to do. So definitely on 4-1, we're not going to do anything here. You spoke about Guild Zaya, which is definitely the the look here. And you were talking about, okay, it was either 4-2, because 4-2 is where you get your third and final augments, and then that will give you more of a direction from there. So definitely, yeah, if we got a guild soul, that'll give you a giant slayer, and I think it's a rise. And although we won't use the rise, it's still 3 gold, but it's mainly the giant slayer and the guild soul that we'll get. And then we can either look for 4-2 or 4-5. In this scenario, we don't have enough gold yet for 4-2 and be able to roll down. But this now we're talking about the plan. So before we continue with the plan, let's talk about still like the current state. So we've talked about our units. Okay, so the units, we're playing our strongest board that we currently have, but the units they need to change, and they need to be like higher cost. So we're most likely going to resell our whole board and change it to like 3 cost and 4 cost units. Okay, items. Okay, we have good Xayah items. Those are going to look for Xayah. Okay, gold. We don't have enough gold to actually roll down on 4-2. So this is most likely going to be a 4-5. HP. Okay, it's kind of low HP. It's going to get a little bit sus, but it's still okay. That's our current state. And then we could create our plan. So so as Light said, I like his plan. If we take a look at what our augment first is on 4-2, then we could either roll down a little bit, or we could wait till 4-5, then level to 8 and try to hit our 2-star Xayah. And does anyone have any ideas of what type of frontline would play then? So let's say our Xayah is going to be Xayah and Twitch in the back. So we get 2 Swift Shot and the Guild for attack speed, but we need some frontline units. Okay, we have Makeshift Armor, which is our second augment here. So this gives, I think they just nerfed it, either 35 or 40 armor and magic resist to any unit that does not carry an item. So that's why you might be thinking, oh, the frontline does not look that strong, doesn't have any items. They actually have bonus resistances because they don't have items. So what type of frontline units would we want to play with our Xayah comp?
Orange.
Cavaliers.
Okay, so Ornn, Cavaliers. If we play with Ornn, then we'd want to splash in at least Tempest, right? So Hero Sax, what type of Tempest unit would you want to splash in?
Kiana for Talon.
Yeah, Kiana Talon, at least get that. Then we'll get 2 synergies there. Well, not only will we have the Tempest synergy, so a little bit of CC 8 seconds in, but we also have that Talon and Assassin for the 2 Assassin and a little bit more damage. Great. And then ABG Kakarot, you said Cavaliers. So in our Guild Xayah, we're going to be playing Sejuani, right? So Sejuani is Cavalier and Guild, and her specific guild is 100 HP to everyone. What other Cavaliers would we want to play as well?
Thinking Hecarim.
Yeah, exactly. Hecarim.
That'll also be 2 of your 3, what's it called? Xayah's Origin.
Yeah, Ragewing. So then, great. So you see what we're doing here is we're playing units that traits splash in with each other. So it's like, okay, it was like 2 Tempest, 2 Assassin, or 2 Cavalier, 2 or 3 Ragewing. And then we can keep our Shen in here, and then we'll have like 3 Ragewing, plenty of Guild, 2 Cavalier, 2 Tempest, 2 Assassin. And you see, that's only like 5 units that were here. And we talked about like 5 or 6 different traits. So there are plenty of opportunities in this game, and you just need to think about, okay, what can I fit in? What works well together? And as your answers came in, you guys are 100% correct. Being able to play like either like 2 Tempest or 2 Assassin, still having at least like 3 Gildan with this Twitch, Sejuani, Talon is going to be a pretty strong board. So this is what you need to be thinking about when you're actually creating your plan. So number 1 is always, we're analyzing your state. Then we see like, okay, so these units, they got to change. Items are good. Who can these items go on? Okay, take a look at our gold. Are we rolling? Not yet. Can we roll next turn? Maybe not. Okay, let's do a 4-5. Okay, like Light said, take a look at 4-2, see what our augment is. Be like, okay, our augment actually does continue helping us towards this Xayah path. Let's continue with Xayah. HP, we have a little bit of HP to spare, 56. We'll still be okay. And then you create your plan, and then you execute your plan.
What's the Mirage here?
Sorry?
What's the Mirage trait here?
Oh, Mirage trait?
You could go for Mirage Cavalier too.
Yeah, the Mirage trait here is Warlord. You could just tell because of this little like yellow indicator. It shows like how stacked your Warlord's here. And yeah, you could go you actually could go Mirage Cavalier. And then in this case, who would these items go on for, like which unit?
Yeah.
Asia.
Yeah. But what about the Infinity Edge?
Jesus, everybody knew. Christ.
Yeah,
Alright,
that's
keep it-
You will have to get a Yasuo.
okay. So, Herosax, this is a great example of being able to like follow a general plan, but then play flexible considering the circumstances. So, like we said at the start, there are plenty of angles from this spot. Let's say we go level 8 on 4-5, right after Carousel, and then we roll down. Automatically, we hit a Deja and a Yasuo. Great, so Deja, 1, 2, 3, Nunu, 4, Yon, 5, Yasuo, 6. Now we have 6 Mirage. Okay, and then we could put the Ginsu's Rage Blade and the Quicksilver Sash on the Deja, put the Infinity Edge on the Yasuo, even slam a Hand of Justice on him, and then maybe we finish off with a Bloodthirster or a another QSS on him. And now we have a strong 6 Mirage board. Can even splash in the Sejuani for 1 Guild and Cavalier for the Nunu. We have Warrior with the Yon. And then this is just like a type of like plan that you can consider depending on what you hit. So that's a great example. And now you're saying like, oh, everybody already knew. Don't worry, as you continue to play the game, you'll be able to like really recognize these patterns and these types of angles. And I know it's can be pretty overwhelming at the start because there's maybe
Oh, it's daunting. It's daunting.
there's maybe like 50-ish units, and each of them all have like different traits, and you're trying to figure out like what all the traits do. But don't fear, keep playing the game, have some fun. Read everything in the game. So like read all the traits, read all the abilities, read all the items. Take a look at other people's boards, see what are they doing, huh? And then from there you'll be able to start like really recognizing these patterns of like, okay, Deja, great with attack speed. There she wants Rage Blade. QSS, it removes crowd control, good on carries, that type of patterns. And I would recommend continuing to, if you are looking to get better at the game and to learn more, continue attending these masterclasses like you're doing. We have our VOD review 30 minutes right after the end of this masterclass at 4:30 PST, and we even have in-houses, friendly in-houses to play in at 6 p.m. PST. So then we can actually go into game and try out some of these new ideas. Okay. Great.
Alright, keep it up.
Yeah.
Now here's a question real quick before we move on.
Yeah. What's up?
So what would the likability like? So let's say we do our augment. Let's say the augment we get is Jade Reliant or something along those lines, and then our first reroll we get a Shioyu. Could we technically pivot into Shioyu Jade with Cavalier?
So there's one problem with the way that or with the situation is, number one, you said let's say we get the augment, we pick Jade, and then our next roll we hit a Shioyu. By picking Jade as our third augment, we automatically lock ourselves into the Jade route. And let's say we don't hit that Shioyu, and now we're stuck with this board, and it's a full transition. It's like, okay, yeah, we have the Ashe and the Gnar. That's at least like 2 out of 6. Shioyu would be 3, 4, 5, and then number 6 would be like Nico. But
if we got it.
By hitting Jade right on 4-2, like clicking that augment, automatically we're now cornered. We're stuck in the Jade corner. And let's say we roll and like, okay, if we hit Shioyu, great. Yeah, we can transition. At least the Jade statues get makeshift armor. Not bad. Put these items on Shioyu, probably guaranteed top 4. But let's say we roll and we hit 2 Talons and a Xayah, and then we don't end up finding any Shioyus. So although it's like, yeah, we could risk it for the biscuit and go for like the Jade route, but it's much more beneficial to just go with like a general augment, or at least an augment that helps us with our current plan, and then like stick to that. So for example, let's say the augment was like a guild augment, right? Well, our plan is already look towards playing Xayah, and if we're rolling down at least like 35 gold on level 8, so that's a 25% chance of seeing a forecast unit, we're bound to hit at least 1 Xayah, and then from there we could stabilize, build back up our gold, and then roll down again. And that's just from like being flexible and being open to what we hit, and then being able to go with that. So that's why I would say, like, unless like, I don't know, unless you're already holding like a Shioyu pair on your bench or something, and like a Nico, I wouldn't go for a Jade augment on 4-2 unless like I have a clear path or opportunity to transition into that.
Okay.
Are those augments only good on the last part? Like, for example, you re-roll your augments?
Wh-
Are they only good near the end, or
oh, are you
can
talking
play
about
from the
like,
opening tournament?
are you saying like when is the best time to reroll them?
Yes,
Okay.
basically.
So I would say a good time to reroll them can be any time within the game, and you only reroll them if your three options you're given at the first just like they're either just bad or do not work with your board or they're both. So let's say like from this spot, we're given like preparation, which is an augment that requires you to keep units on the board. They'll get stacks after each round and give yourself like more attack damage, more ability power, but you have to keep them on your bench. So then something like that is like, oh, like a stacking augment that takes time at this point is too late. If you're given that and like, I don't know, like item, it's not like bad augments, then you would re-roll it. So essentially you just want
I
to, you want to re-roll it when your augments choices, they're not applicable to your board, or B, they're just bad because either like they're not applicable at the current stage of the game, or yeah. So another example is like, let's say it's your first augment, right? So that's on 2-1. So at the very start, there's an augment called like late game specialist, which is gain 40 gold once you hit level 9. Well, it's 2-1 is the very first like combat stage of the whole game. You don't know if you're going to be like actually re-rolling or like just having a level 8 board, if you're actually even going to go level 9. Let's say you're given that and two other augments that don't apply. You hit re-roll and then you get 3 new options, and hopefully at least one of them is okay.
Okay, I see.
Okay. So yeah, really great answers from everyone talking about step 1, step 2, and step 3. And then our last little part here is when should you transition. So far we've talked about a little bit of an introduction of transitioning, talked about what influences transitioning, we talked about how to create a game plan, with step number 1 being analyze your current state, step number 2 being create your actual plan, and then step number 3 is execute your plan and be flexible to circumstances changing. So let's talk about when should you actually transition. And I know we already talked a little bit about this, like stage 4-2 or stage 4-5, but let's go a little bit more into depth because the timing is really important. Okay, so remember, this is similar to step 1, factors taken, HP, gold, units, enemy boards. These are the factors that will be affecting the timing of when you're going to transition. Okay, so in today's meta, or at least in this set, transitioning on level 7 is very common. You will always go level 7 if you're not playing a reroll comp, so just playing like regularly standard. You'll always go level 7 on stage 4-1. Okay, level 7 on stage 4-1, and you want to create a temporary stable board. So this either means like finding your composition's main dragon. So if you're playing Siphon, well, find Siphon. If you're playing if you're playing Jade, then find Shiou. If you're playing Corki, find Idis. This is just an example of when you transition on level 7, finding your composition dragon. You want to try to either like 2-star your core units, or at least try to get one copy of your core unit and then place your items on them. And then you always want to try to stay above 30 gold on this port, so then you're able to level 8 on either 4-5 if you're stable, or even on 5-1. So this, we're talking about like when to transition here. Number 1, if you have an unstable board, or if you're not able to make it a 4-5 very like healthy, level 7 on 4-1, which most people should be doing anyway, create your temporary stable board, and then later into the game you can look to either continue rolling or level to 8. So this is what transitioning on level 7 is. Then there's transitioning on level 8, and this is if you're okay. Well, let's talk about stage 4-2. So stage 4-2, the second round of stage 4, this is considered a fast level 8. So you only do this if you're very rich. So if you're able to still roll at least 30 to 35 gold after leveling to 8. And this is a lot because it takes 56 gold to go from level 7 to level 8. So not only are you spending 56 to level to 8, you also want to have at least 30 to 35 gold to roll after you level. So only stage 4-2, fast 8 if you're very rich. Or you already have a pair of your carry unit, because then in this case you'll need less gold to actually 2-star your carry unit because you only need to find one more copy. Let's say we're in our previous example that we talked about, we're playing Guild Zaya, right? Let's say it's stage 4-1, but the only difference is we already have 2 Zayas. Well, in this case, we can just like fast level 8 to stage 4, and let's say we only have 20 gold to roll. Well, we only need to find one Zaya compared to 3. And so then in this case, if you already have a pair of your carry unit, maybe fast 8 and transitioning on 4-2 is okay. And the last one is if you're low HP. So essentially, if you're about to die, it's better to salvage. Okay, well, salvaging an 8th is not good. It should be 6th or 7th. Because the 8th is not salvaging, that's just going last place. So if you're about to die, you want to try to salvage either a 6th or a 7th by making your strongest board as soon as possible. And you can't really greed out at that point if you're low HP. So that's what a fast 8 or a stage 4-2 transition is. There's also a stage 4-5, which is the regular level 8. If your composition requires a lot of gold, which is almost all of them this set, which means just because there's dragons. And dragons, they cost either 24 or up to 30 gold to 2-star, and that's a lot. If you're playing multiple 4-cost units, so like the Zaya comp, because you want to 2-star your Zaya, you want to 2-star your Talon, you want to 2-star your Hecarim, they're all 12 gold each, so that's at least 36, and you're not all going to find them in the same shop. So that's, you want to level to 8 on stage 4-5 and transition if it requires a lot of gold, and or if you have HP to spare. So you're going to sack, which means just like not level or not roll. Stage 4-2 and 4-3 if you have HP to spare. This just gives you a lot more gold to roll with by not fast leveling, and then you can transition after carousel. So a quick thing to think about in TFT is comparing gold and HP. You can sacrifice one to save the other. So let's say you have a lot of HP, you can then sacrifice your HP to get more gold. If you have like gold, you can sacrifice your gold, which means like rolling or leveling to save HP. So these two things can be compared very, very easily. One affects the other and the other one affects one. So sacrifice HP, you can save a lot of gold and make more gold. Sacrifice your gold, you can save HP by making your board stronger and winning rounds. So these two things are very comparable. Okay, so I know we talked about it a lot. Let's do a quick summary. If you have a stable board on stage 4 round 1, you can greed and transition on level 8. Most likely on either 4-2 or 4-5. This is if you have a stable board. If you have an unstable board, you're losing super hard, then you want to transition on level 7 on 4-1 and stabilize first. These are the main 2 points to take from this entire class. If you're able to follow this, along with the 3-point step of number 1, analyze current state, number 2, create a plan, number 3, execute your plan. If you're able to take these 2 things into your games, your transition from mid to late game will be much, much easier. You'll be able to have a general plan to actually follow, and this in turn, you can focus more on playing flexible and like really looking out for like circumstances that can change your game, rather than figuring out like, oh, what am I actually doing? So I think that's it for today's class. We're gonna have a little Q&A session, so you can either ask questions about today's class, you can ask questions about anything for TFT, and feel free to either use your mic or type. Anything is okay, and the floor is open now.
No questions from me.
Yeah, neither for me.
All right. Well, that has been today's masterclass on how to transition mid to late game. Hopefully this will be able to help you in your future games. I will say in 40 minutes, so at 7:30 p.m. EST or 4:30 p.m. PST, we're going to be doing a VOD review of the latest tournament, Astral Cup, that just happened last week. We're going to be doing a VOD review of that and seeing some high-level gameplay like the best of the best, breaking that down on how they transition. So being able to see this, because now we have the theory, right? We know what to do, but now we want to see it in person and actually see it in game of like, oh, okay, these people applied it, they know what they're doing. Let's see them actually do it in your game. So that is going to be happening in 38 minutes, so 4:30 p.m. PST, and then at 6 p.m. PST or 9 p.m. EST, we're going to be having our in-houses. So if you want to play in the lobbies, we're going to be hosting some fun lobbies here. It's a new patch today. Test out some new compositions, have some fun, get involved in the community. Would love to see you there. So thank you, everyone. I'm Upset Max. Hopefully we'll see you for the VOD review, and have a good one.
Nice, Max.
Thanks, Lights.